Okay, so good morning, and today our target is to work on the control structures. Like, of course, we can't do all in one day, but we'll start with it. Okay. In the last class, what we had done was we had worked with basic input print, and based on that, we did the basic questions like accepting values and performing some calculations on it and then printing it. Okay. Now, what happens is every time your program is not that straight. By straight, I mean that it is not exactly going step by step by step and executing all the steps. At times, I need to perform certain kind of either repetitions of the statements or what do you call it? Like if this condition is true, then do this, or if this condition is true, false, then do this. So there is a kind of selective execution that either this code you execute or this code you execute based on the value of this expression. Okay. Now, those kind of things, or when you want the statements of the program to be repeated a particular number of times. So for these kind of situations, which is very, very common, and we need to work on them multiple times, I go for the concepts of control structures. Like how the control flow of the program will change. What we have done till now is one after the other, all the lines of the code will execute, and that is what is called as the sequential construct, sequential flow. All statements P is equal to 1, print P, print hello. So all statements executed from beginning till the end, one after the other. There is no change. That's called the sequential flow. So that is what we have done till now. Now today we move on to the next one, which is my branching. Okay, now when will branching happen? Certain statements can be sequentially executed. So it's just a diagrammatic representation, as we call it, a flow chart. What is happening is, if I am checking a condition, if the condition is true, then I execute this part. If the condition is false, then I execute this part. So it will be never that both these set of statements are executed in one go. It'll never happen. If it's happening, that means you've written the code wrong. Like here it is print welcome and here it is print hello. So your program will never be giving hello as well as print as your output together in one output. It will either be hello or be welcome, depending upon the condition. Okay. Now, how to form the condition, or what are those kind of operators which give me the output as true or false? That we have done in the data handling. We have learned about the relational operators. We have learned about the logical operators. So when I write expressions with these operators, I get the answer in true or false. Okay. So that's the diagrammatic representation of what we do today. Other than this control structure is also called as branching or selection in all languages. I mean, that's a general concept. And we implement it with a particular set of commands that we learn in Python. Similarly, if you see the third construct here, that's called the looping or iteration construct. Now, as the name suggests you, loop is something like a ring, repetitive, right? So iteration is basically repetition. Once, twice, thrice, 4 times, 5 times, repetition of the code. So also that has to have a limit. I want to execute it 5 times. I want to execute it 10 times. So I have to tell the system, how many times do you want to execute it? Or keep on executing till the user says yes. Keep on executing till the user enters a 0. Very common situations, right? So that is why the system keeps on checking the condition. If true, the statement is executed and it is back to the condition. That's not happening in this. So branching में that is happening, the execution is happening only once. Condition एक ही बार check हो रहा है, वो देखो वापस नहीं जा रहा. The arrow marks are not taking the flow of the control back to the condition at any point of time. Can you see that? These arrows are important to understand. It's just the joining ones are these circles. Start, stop, you may say, or the joining of a different set of code. But for this set of code, the machine is never going back again to the condition. Whereas if you see this part, you'll find that the system is going to work in a manner that if the condition is true, it's going to execute a set of statements or a single statement, then go back to the condition. Till the condition is true, it keeps on executing, keeps on executing, keeps on executing. When the condition will become false, then only it will come down to the different flow, to the different part of the code. And hence, you may continue with another condition, you may write another if, you may write another loop, or you may have certain set of sequential statements that depends upon the situation or the code. Okay, so these are the basic flows of your program. Either it is loop, or it is selection, or it is sequential. Okay. Now let's learn what these are. We've just now discussed it. When statement of program execute one after the other in a sequence, they are said to follow a sequential construct. Now, let me tell you one thing. All these three constructs don't work in isolation in a program. So you say that only sequential statements will be there. So if a program has sequential statements, it cannot have branching or it cannot have loop. Or if it has a loop statement, it cannot have the other two. That is no rule. All depends upon what are you doing. Depends upon the need. If you need all three, you'll use all three. If you need all two, I mean either of the two, either of the three, then you'll use that. If you need a combination of any of the two, you'll do that. Like all these days, I mean, I should not say all these days, we hardly had two classes regarding programs. So whenever we were writing the programs earlier, we had the code written in a sequential construct. So if it is only sequential, then also it will work. Or it's a combination of others, then also it will work. There's no fixed rule for that. Conditional branching or selection construct. That's what we may call it. When a particular set of statements are executed based on a condition, it's called conditional branching. This term has a very good meaning, very good, term meaning, you can say. Conditional branching. The branching of the code, the diversion of the flow, whatever you want to call it, that's happening based on a condition. That's why you call it a conditional branching. Okay? It's implemented in Python using if statement. Now that is this keyword if, which I'm going to use for applying my conditional branching or selection construct. That is the rule. I mean, that's the thing. Okay. Variations of the if is there, definitely. There are multiple variations of if which we are going to use. But the basic statement is if statement. Now, loop or iterative construct, iteration, whatever you want to call it, when a set of statements are executed repeatedly, that's called iteration. And I've got two set of statements for that. One is for and one is while. Most probably this term we'll be able to work only on for. We don't have much time now. While we'll do in the next term. Okay. So these two statements are used and they have a difference. There are situations where I cannot use for. Okay. While is more flexible, I can use while in every and any looping situation. Okay. We understand that thoroughly, properly later. Okay. Now let's see the basic syntax or the method of using our if statement. Okay. Very, very simple. The way we speak, if this is true, if this condition, if A is more than 20, if B is less than 40, then what do you want to do? So accordingly, you present it. But the syntax or the formats had certain rules which we have to follow. Number one, obviously it's case sensitive. So if is a word which is to be written in small case. We will not have if with capital letters I. A more than 20. That's my condition. If the value of A, we've assigned the value of A as 10, and I'm checking it also. If A is more than 20, colon, this colon is very, very important. When you press colon, you'll automatically have the next line little indented. That's important term here. Very, very important. Means the code block which you want to execute, if this condition is true, will be little indented. You can easily make out when you see the code that if this condition is true, this set of statements have to be executed. If the condition is false, then this set of statements have to be executed. The indent is different. And the indent is very, very important. Without the indent, it doesn't work. Okay, I'll just show you that. Now here, what if the condition is false? That I have not given. That is not compulsory also. They ask in the MCQs at times, in the if statement, what else, if else statement, what is optional? Can I avoid writing the colon? No, I cannot. Can I avoid writing the expression? No, I cannot. Can I avoid writing if altogether? No, I cannot. So what is essentially optional is your else statement. So depending upon your work, you may use else, you may not use else. But if is compulsory if you want to use an else. So you may not have a statement which starts with else and ends. It's not may, it is never going to happen. So you cannot have else without the if, but you may have if without the else. Okay. So here is the next set of format where I'm saying that if the condition is true, statements to be executed if the condition is true. So whatever you want to do, single, multiple statements, whatever. But please note, and you're going to do it for the first time, it is little indented inside. Okay. So whatever statements, 1, 2, 3, 4, whatever number of statements you want to write, indented. Then when I want to go back to my condition, I take my else back below if, and that I have to manually do it. It doesn't happen automatically. Okay. So I need to do that manually. That is, I come to this point, to this particular line, and then take the cursor back below else. And then I put a colon again. That's important. When you put a colon, automatically the cursor comes at this place. Little indented, that's automatic. Okay. But then when you have to go back, that is, you have to go outside if or outside else, then you have to do it explicitly. So this format is important to be maintained. Otherwise, the code will not execute. You'll give an error. Here's an example for that. Like I'm taking the value of age from the user and I'm just checking whether that person is eligible to vote or not. Unfortunately, I've given here 60 as the eligibility for voting, but whatever condition it is. Okay. So with if I specify that condition, if this condition is true, he will go and execute this statement. Otherwise, he will go and execute this statement. Okay. Now, if that be the thing, then in that case, there are these two things which are very, very important. One is the indentation and the other is the colon in front of if as well as else. Right? These two you have to be really careful about. Right? Let's do some questions, at least one or two, so that you know that, yes, I can do it. If you have your machine, very well and good. You may practice along with me. If you don't have it, no problems. You will have to practice it later. Okay, I just want to show you the way it's going to work for you. So let's go to my, ideally, you may have any platform for that matter. Doesn't really affect. Once you open, let's check for this positive, negative value itself. Or let's do the fifth one. Okay, let's do it after the first one. So I'll go file new. Hope you remember that. Then we are going to the script mode to write our code. Comment. I don't remember whether I've discussed it with you or not. There are certain lines in the program which I don't want to execute. Why so? It's like a description of the code. This program is used to check for signs, something. Okay. This is a comment. I don't want this line to be executed. And when you want to put these kind of comments, if it is a single line, then the line starts with hash. If it's a multi-line of statements, like I want check this value made by, so I want all these three lines to be my comments. Now you go for doing single quote thrice. It is single quote thrice. start of it, and single quote thrice end of it. Can you see the color is changed? The single line comments means any line you don't want him to execute, but keep it in the program. It's hash symbol, single line comment. Multi-line comment it is 3 single quotes at the beginning, 3 single quotes at the end. Now you may write here 3 hashes also, like all the 3 lines preceded by the hash symbol, but then you're increasing your job, isn't it? If there are 10 lines of 10 lines in the program which you want to make as comment, you'll have to put 10 hash symbols at the beginning of every line, right? So this is a method which eases that work basically. So beginning of the statements, you put a triple thing, and at the end, wherever you want to enter. Post that again it's post that again, it is in the mode of your basic writing of the code. Okay. Now here I want to add something. Like this year I learned this thing in one of my classes in school, that instead of 3 single quotes, what if I do 2 double and 1 single? It doesn't work. Can you see this line has not been taken as part of the comment? The color doesn't change. Okay. What about 3 double quotes? That also works. Okay. So 3 double quotes or 3 single quotes, both works. I was under the impression that it's 3 single quotes. I used to always use 3 single quotes, but both works actually. So you may use any. Okay, now let's move on to what we were doing. We were supposed to accept a number, check whether it is positive number or negative number. So let's take the variable as h, because it's a number and I want to check it later. Apply my operators on it and work on it. I'll go for the int. You may go for float also, eval also, no problem. Input statement to accept it. And then I check if the value of h is greater than 0. And did you see that? The moment I press colon, it moves on to the next line with the indentation. You see that? I'm not doing it myself. It's moving automatically. But what if I forget to put the colon? It doesn't. So then it's not going to consider the next set of statements as part of the if. Okay. So in order to make it work as part of the if, we have to put a colon and then move. And here I would say print whatever I want to do. Like there could be some calculation also. There could be another set of if also. Whatever you want to do. Keeping it simple as of now, we put it like this. Else print like this. Okay. Fine. I didn't point it out. Problem is when I do it here, I'm still at that indent only, but I want to go out. So what was my option? My option was to press backspace and execute here. Okay. Again with else, when you put a colon and you move down, you'll have the cursor below at an indented point. If that's not happening, that means you're making some mistake. So make sure you are cautious about it. Okay. But yes, these things takes, 5 programs. Once you write 5 of them, you'll get used to it. So it is not a headache that you have to remember it throughout your life. You get to do it automatically once you're used to it. So 3, 4 programs when you do, you'll automatically, your system will understand that this is how it works. So it's not that difficult to remember. Okay, that's it. Now, when you want to do something extra also, and something which is outside if else block, then I may come again out with the backspace key and do whatever I want to, or continue with the rest of the code of the program based on the situation. You may again start a fresh if, you may write sequential construct statements, you may write loop statements, whatever you want to do, that's based on the question. Now, this is a statement. Please understand what I'm trying to say here. This is a statement which is not part of either if nor else. This is part of the whole code, like this one. This statement is not part of the if or else, but that is obvious because it is above if, right? The confusion happens at this line. But once it is outside the indent, you know that it's not part of either if or else. It's not part of either of the blocks. Okay. So this statement will be executed no matter what is the value of h. So the answer will be either positive by or negative by. Okay. Let's check this again. For running, it is run module. You may save the program first because without saving, it will not run. So you may save and run, or you may run, it will still save. So let's name it R1, whatever name you want to give, and then it executes. Enter a number. I'm saying -7, negative by. So positive wala part dekho nahi execute hua because condition false ho gayi. It jumped to the else part. Okay. Due to time constraint, I cannot execute all the questions in front of you. That's for you to practice. But you have to keep those things in mind. Do it yourself. If you get stuck somewhere, especially who's doing it for the first time, will definitely have problems. You can message me with your code that, ma'am, this is the code I've written and this is the error I'm getting. So I may help you with that. Okay. So let's move further. And once you do a little more, then we can come back to these questions. Now, the second part of this is now, that was a simple if first, where I did not have any else. Second code was where I had if as well as else. Okay. And the third one, what we learn now is the if elif ladder. This is something which is very, very significant. And I'll tell you why. And it makes the code simpler for complex situations. Okay. Now, what happens is I get back to the code which I've written, because that is from where I start actually. Back again, I should have closed it. Sorry for that. Now, what happens in this question, what is happening is that my positive numbers are being called as positive, so no problem. But my 0 is called as a negative number. Do you realize that? Because I've not put anything for equal to 0. Greater than 0, positive. Otherwise, now in this otherwise, if I put a 0, then also it will say me negative because ye condition false. So anything else will jump to the else part. Okay. So it's not always single if, no? Like this one condition, true and one condition false. It's not like that. Like when you talk about the grades, the thing which you see on the screen of your PPT also. If I have more than 90 marks, I have A grade. Otherwise, I have B grade. What about the other classification? Like from 80 to 90, I have a separate one. From 70 to 80, I have a separate one. From 60 to 70, I have a separate one. 50 to 60, I have a separate one. So multiple conditions when I want to give, I need multiple set of if and else's. Now, how do I do that? I'll try to show it here because that makes it simpler to understand. Supposingly, I say that, okay, one way of doing it is that here I'm saying else. If a number is not more than 0, it comes to the else part. Okay? Here I check again. Is it equal to 0? If so, then what am I printing? That yes, it is 0. Neither positive nor negative. Whatever message you want to give. Okay. Now I have one if at the top. Within else, I have another if. This is called as nesting. I may have another if condition within if also. And here I'm having a if condition within else. Whichever way the code works out for us based on the condition, we'll do that. But this concept is called as nesting. Nesting of the statement. So I may have the nesting done to any level. Within this again, I may have another if. Within that, I may have another if. As well as an else also. Within else, I may have another if. So this may go on to any level. Code doesn't stop you to do so. Depends upon your implementation. Okay. Now, what I want to do here now is that if the value is more than 0, it is positive and the code is over. So it should go back out of that entire, come out of that entire if else structure. But if not, I go inside else and I check this particular condition. If this is true, he will do this. अब ये किया तो नेगेटिव या पॉजिटिव दोनों में से कुछ भी प्रिंट नहीं होना चाहिए. So it will automatically come out. But if this is also not true, then I go to the else of what? I go to the else of this if now. Because I'm at the else of this if, I am keeping my cursor for this else as here, below if, and I'm not taking it here. यहाँ चला गया, so what does it mean? That this else also belongs to this if. One if cannot have two else's or more than two else's. One if can have one else only. Right? So that is why this cannot come here. It has to be at this point. Because this else is belonging to the if which I have written here. And that is what the indent makes clear. That this is how it has to be done. Otherwise, the system will also get confused. And you'll get the errors. If this is happening, then I take my... So I am wanting to put the negative print statement within the cells, and if it is within the cells, it should be at the proper indent. Okay. Now, when this structure becomes more complex, I mean, when you have more ifs and conditions within one, the structure becomes actually very, very complex and difficult to handle. In the sense that all the ifs and else's have to be placed properly, otherwise it goes wrong. Like simply here also, if I do this particular thing, then let's see what happens. What I was talking about, that this means one if with two else's. The moment I run, it says invalid syntax. ठीक है, अब जैसे ही वो बहुत ज्यादा हो जाएगा, you will have more number of problems. If you are perfect with it, it's very good. But otherwise, it'll create a problem. Okay. So that is why our our language gives us a solution to that problem. What is that solution? Nested if. Nested if में क्या है? The pattern of writing becomes easy. No matter whatever number of conditions you have. Okay. Now, to rectify this part, let me change this code basically. Okay. And how do I change this code? I change this code the way I want it. So here it is, the elif ladder, as the name suggests you, elif like this. So if this condition is true, he'll execute this part. Else if this condition is true, what is that? Then he will do this. Okay. Now automatically post this, the intent comes here. Right? Okay, this is also not true. So where do I go? I go to the next if condition. Else if. Now, if you see technically, this else part is the else for this. Okay. Now, this else part is actually the else part of this. But I don't have to go to the indent and specify that. I may do it in a straight line. That's a rule for implementing your elif structure, elif ladder structure. I don't need to go inside with all the if conditions. I can do it in a straight line. Okay, that makes it look simpler and implement also in the simple manner. I mean, the possibility of errors are less. Okay, this is also done. Now here I would say if h is less than 0, then you print this. And then this print by is still at its same place only, outside all that if elif thing. Okay, this makes our life easier, and hence elif ladder is very, very significant when you have multiple conditions. When it's a single condition, one if and one else, then of course you don't need that. Okay. Whenever you put an elif, please remember the most common error which we find in these kind of codes are, whenever you put an elif, you need to have a condition in front of that. Okay. Now, if supposingly this is, I mean, as per basic mathematics, you just have these three conditions only when you talk about one number: more than 0, equal to 0, less than 0. और कुछ नहीं हो सकता. So मतलब अगर वो बड़ा नहीं है 0 से, अगर वो 0 के बराबर भी नहीं है, तो automatically it is negative. So I may put a simple else. That means if this is also false, if this is also false, then please come and execute this. So I may have 100 conditions and the 11th one will be an else. So if all those 100 conditions are wrong, then what do? Come to the last else. Okay, but then this else again is as per the rule of if else optional. It is not essential to put that last else. I mean, an else specifically for this entire LF structure, that is not essential. You may have all the conditions specified. I don't want to give an open option to my user that, okay, nothing done out of this, so then this is supposed to happen. As a situation where nahi hai, so accordingly I do it. But that depends. In this question, it is applicable without any mistake. I'll discuss a few more where you'll find that इससे confusion होता है ज़्यादा गलती होगी if you put it like that. So here I have to make it specific. I mean I have to make specific the condition. यहाँ पे नहीं है because यहाँ पे और कोई option ही नहीं है आपके पास. It's either positive or zero or negative. So I may keep it at the else only. Okay, but you cannot put an else here because you want to put a condition, right? And what else? And the second part is that in front of else also you cannot put any condition. So vice versa doesn't work. यहाँ पे I cannot put a condition. Else means else. Rest. Okay. So that is how it works. Let us execute it once and check. Let us execute it once and check. Enter a number. So I'm saying 0. So 0 is executed and by being out of all the three if conditions, I'm getting this by. Okay. If I may execute it once more. Let's execute it once more. Suppose I give a positive number. So positive and by. By will always come because I put it outside the if. All the if and else's. Right? That's the basic format of my if else. LF ladder. Which is very, 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 very significant, of course, from your exam point of view also. And for, I mean, every situation which we try to work on with. Okay. Now, there's one more thing we have to understand in this, which is very, very significant. So please be very careful for somebody who's doing it for the first time. So see here the condition. Here I'm saying that more than 90 is very good, more than 80 is good, and else it's average. Some based on some percentage I'm doing that. So for value of A is basically a percentage for me. Now here when I'm coming to this condition, can you see this? This condition I'm talking. What does it mean? It means that A is not more than 90. है ना? So यहाँ पे क्या हो जाता है? This is executed when A is less than 90, but A is more than 80. Right? So here you may write else A greater than 90 and A less than, sorry, A greater than 80 and A less than 90. I may write that. Or I may just write this much because it's obvious. He is going to come in and check this condition only when this condition is false. अगर ये true है तो वो ये करेगा और वो इसके बाद बाहर आ जाएगा. If this condition is false, he'll come and execute the other one. So automatically when it is reaching here when the value of A is less than 90. So there's no need to write and A is less than 90. Even if you write it, it's not wrong. But there is no need. That is also one thing which is really making our life easier when I'm using a LF structure. Certain things are assumed. And I don't have to write it again and again. Okay? Fine. We don't have much time. Now let's see the comparison. Why am I again and again saying that my nested if is good? LF ladder is good as compared to a proper nesting. Right? Can you see here? The nesting goes like this. Here once indent goes wrong, एक else थोड़ा इधर से इधर हो गया, पीछे हो गया, आगे हो गया, it becomes wrong. Indent error दे देगा वो उठा. ठीक है? Whereas in this case, keeping the whole thing in the same line, you may have the same thing implemented without any problem. So that makes my life easier. Okay? So multiple conditions, always keep in mind that you have to use an elif. Fine? Now, one more concept which is important, and they may ask it as a question in your interviews also, job interviews also. Okay? बहुत ही basic है, but something which you miss out. I'm comparing here LF ladder, the first one, the nested if, the second one, and an independent if also. By independent if, you can see, pehla condition has one if, second condition is another if, third condition is another if. Okay? What will be the difference? Now here what happens, I just have a minute to go, so let me finish it with this only. The first round, I'll join again. I mean, you also have to join again, okay? So now here what is happening, if this condition is true, he is not going to execute any of the conditions. He's not going to check any of the conditions. If this condition is true, he's going to execute this line and he is reaching here. He is out of the if structure. Because बाकी सब कुछ वो पहले के else में है. अगर वो true हो गया तो बाकी पूरा structure उसके लिए illogical है. नहीं चाहिए. Similarly, here also that is happening, but here it is actually looking very complex. ठीक है? But it makes our life simple. There are 100 conditions. First one is true. He will not check the rest of the 99 conditions. Correct? Obviously, CPU time is not wasted. A lot of things are not wasted here. Efficiency improves. Here what is happening? If this condition, in the independent if this condition is true, he'll execute this part. But because the next if is an independent if, it's not part of the structure. It's not part of that if as coming as else. He'll again check this. अब अगर वो more than 0 है तो equal to 0 हो ही नहीं सकता है ना? So this condition is checked, wrong. This condition is also checked, wrong, है ना? So you're just unnecessarily making him work more. So though the third one, which is an independent if, as an implementation of this particular situation is not wrong, all three are correct, what I've shown you on the screen.